This armor set is worth 40 billion Skyblock coins. Why? There's one simple reason. It's blue. The blue Frozen Blaze set is considered exotic, and its unique color has given it a market value of $13,000 in booster cookies. But it's not the only one. In fact, there are tens of thousands of pieces of armor that hold this special distinction, but only a very few are worth this astronomical amount. These armor pieces, known as exotics, have a long and convoluted past. The various creation methods, the drama, scams, and messaging someone's mom on Facebook? Yikes. My name is Sudi, and welcome to another episode of Skyblock History. Every armor piece on Skyblock has a specific color. Superior Dragon is yellow, Storm Armor is blue, and Necron Armor is red. However, for a long time, players could actually dye their armor using the vanilla Minecraft features. This didn't occur very much because back in those days, it devalued the armor by 10 to 20%. The reason for the price drop is because it wasn't easy to dye armor back to its original color, and the vibrant yellow and orange of, say, Superior Armor is where the major flex came from. So if you dyed your armor, it wouldn't be as easy to flex on other people. The dyed armor price drop meant the only people who created the items that would later come to be known as exotics were players who were willing to take that tank in value in exchange for some cool aesthetics. But at the time, dyed armor wasn't considered special in any way. That all changed on November 11th, 2019, when the admins removed the ability to dye armor and change the crafting system. They did this to eliminate players accidentally crafting vanilla items using special Skyblock items. For example, it used to be possible to make regular diamond swords with enchanted diamonds or with diamond spreading. This also prevented players from dyeing armor to another color to try scam, like dyeing old dragon armor to the yellow and orange of Superior and selling it for that amount. Not many people thought much of this change until the co-op of Lico and the Vincent89 saw random Skyblock sweats at God Splashes walking around with dyed Superior armor flexing on everyone. Suddenly the tables had turned. Dyed armor became the flex rather than the default. Vincent and Leek thus purchased a set of blue Superior for 175 million coins. At the time, that may have sounded like a lot, but maxed out Superior was worth about half as much, so they paid less than 100 million coins for the blue color. Vince and Lico's co-op got super invested in armor which was dyed to cool colors, so they bought more dyed Superior and started flipping the exotic armor pieces. Leek and Vincent put the armor on the auction house, flexed on people in splash lobbies, and got sales that way. Sometimes the auction house wouldn't work out too well though, and trying to sell exotics in Discord servers like Skyblock Z was a no-go because of the constant spam of messages. Their offers were just lost in the crowd. Thus, Leek and Vincent created the Exotic Cafe in order to bring collectors together and facilitate the buying, selling, and trading of these specially dyed armor pieces. As it turns out, dyeing armor is not the only way exotics were created, but I'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, the cafe was established on August 25th, 2020, about 8 months after dyeing armor was disabled, and they had no idea what this community would do within the next couple of years. In the early days of exotic hunting, people went around from lobby to lobby looking for players with cool armor. This was too slow though, so some people created scanners. By default, everyone who plays Skyblock has their API set to private. Making this public means anyone can go through your stats, inventory, and ender chest. Technically speaking, if you were to go through every inventory and ender chest on Skyblock, you would find a lot of items. That was the concept behind these scanners, the first of which was created by Leek using the Chat Triggers mod. It was able to scan the armor and hotbar of every person in the lobby, as well as comb through GUIs. The main GUI of interest was, of course, the auction house, so Leek could know if there were any dyed armor pieces on the AH at any given moment. Leek posted a screenshot of his scanner, and this inspired the exotic collector Mezzy to create Mezzy mod. With these mods, players could enter a lobby grab the username of every single person there and check their inventories and ender chests for exotic armor. Exotic armor is identified if the hex color code is different from normal. For instance, superior dragon armor has a default hex code of F2D F11, so any deviation in that value found by pressing F3 and H is an armor piece which has been dyed. Collectors armed with this type of mod went around lobby hopping, able to scan dozens of players a minute. In late 2020, the exotic community got a lot of attention when I Go By Lots of Names made a video on an exotic blue superior set. The Vincent89, who owned the set, claimed it was worth an outlandish billion coins. I Go By Lots of Names, after asking around, determined the set wasn't worth nearly that much, but the video nonetheless shed light on this quarter of the Skyblock community. Someone actually offered Vincent a billion coins for the set, so he was vindicated. Just a month later, another method to create exotics was brought into the game, and it was there for just an hour. When Floor 7 of Dungeons was released, a couple of people who dropped the super rare Wither armor were able to turn their drops into Storm chestplates. For the first hour after the update dropped, the Storm chestplates kept the original black color from the Wither armor instead of turning to the intended blue. 3 players were able to create this black Storm armor before the admins made all newly crafted Storm armor blue. These 3 black Storm chestplates were unique, but weren't actually considered super exotic by the top collectors. All that changed when one of the owners put his chestplate on the auction house for 1 billion coins, and it sat there for a couple of days. No one was crazy enough to buy it until the YouTuber Prix came along and was crazy enough to buy it. Suddenly, those chestplates became the most expensive armor pieces in the game. Their hefty price came from both their exclusivity, since the supply was so limited, and their utility. They were actually useful in-game. That being said, a rule of thumb for valuing exotics is that they're only worth as much as collectors are willing to pay for them. With that in mind, there's a couple of factors which go into how much an exotic is worth. The first is rarity. If an item is one of a kind, it's worth a lot more than items which aren't. There are tons of exotic magma armor sets, so those aren't worth as much as exotic dragon armor. The second factor is the utility. If an exotic is useful in the current metas, such as those Storm chestplates, then the price shoots up. Next is the question of whether or not the exotic is clean. For example, exotics with enchantments like Thorns and Depth Strider were worth less. The price also drops if the armor has an enchantment glint. Also, if the armor has stars or reforges, the prices go down because collectors think those aren't the most aesthetically pleasing and thus will pay less. The final factor is the hex code. The hex code is based on the color of the armor, determined by how many of each color dye was put on it. Pure color hex codes, made with adding the maximum amount of one color dye to the armor, have some of the highest prices. Also, ugly colors are worth less because they're, well, ugly. Remember, exotics are only worth as much as collectors are willing to pay for them. Colors including mint, cyan, and lime are quite sought after and thus more expensive. Armor that's dyed to the specific hexes listed here is not considered exotic because those pieces were not dyed. There used to be a glitch to change the color of your armor using fairy and crystal armor, so sets that have that color aren't considered exotic. As expected, whenever Minecrafters get together in large quantities, shenanigans ensue. One player who I'll call Lobby 2 was well known for duping exotics, and he sold a red superior set, worth around 15 billion coins today, and yellow protector dragon leggings. Those were all wiped, but the exotic collector avoided still owns a duped copy of the yellow protector leggings. Lobby 2 did not represent the majority of the exotic community though. Most players there were simply interested in finding what undiscovered items were still out there, and expanding their own collections. In the late days of January in the following year 2021, exotics received even more attention when a thread on the forums by Quack, aka Rishy Fishy, went viral. Quack created and posted a guide for exotics, including which armors could be exotic, and how to determine if some of your armor falls under that same umbrella. Just days later, the YouTuber 50mil Midas made a video on the same subject, bringing even more people to the exotic cafe. One notable collector that Midas showcased was Wurple, who had an insane superior dragon armor collection of almost every color. The easiest way to expand a collection at the time was to buy armor off of people who didn't know how much their sets were worth, and finding those people was most often done with scanners. A couple of different scanner mods had already been in use for some time when the collectors Shanryush and Avoided began working on a new strategy. Going around from lobby to lobby was too inefficient, because not everyone who owns exotics hangs out in those main lobbies. Not only that, but the names of people who used to play Skyblock but don't anymore were totally inaccessible. This is where the biggest innovation in scanner technology was brought into play: the Friends endpoint. Coders, including Leak and Avoided, both developed scanners which checked a player's inventory and ender chest, the basic practice up until this point. But the scanners would then check the inventory and ender chest of everyone in that person's friends list, and then check the inventory and ender chest of everyone in that person's friends list, and so on. Suddenly, scanners went from going through dozens of inventories at a time to thousands and thousands. Most people who had these scanners kept their mods and databases private so they could have potentially exclusive access to the cool items found. Even so, just because a scanner identifies a player with a piece or set of exotic armor, that doesn't mean it'll be easy to get. This is where sniping or sharking comes into play. Sharking is the art of totally underpaying for an item's worth to players who don't know any better. Let's say I make a scanner and find a set of green superior armor on someone's account. The first step, and often the most difficult, is contacting that player. If the owner is an active Hypixel player, it may be as simple as sending them a friend request when they're online and making an offer. If they aren't active, they may have socials linked to their Minecraft account, like Discord or Instagram. Once in contact, collectors sometimes offer real-life money through PayPal or cryptocurrency to exotic owners who aren't interested in Skyblock coins anymore. This is strictly against Hypixel's rules, but some do it anyway. After Avoided finished his database, he sniped what is now worth billions of coins per day. He was able to find a Lime Young set, which he got for free, a dark blue protector set, and what became the most expensive armor in the game. His database was so expansive, it included millions of Minecraft accounts, which took him a full 2 weeks to search through because of his slow Wi-Fi. If every single person who owned those Minecraft accounts subscribed right now, I would have a lot of subscribers, so you should subscribe. After creating a list of every single person with exotic armor from the massive database, Avoided created a bot to ping him on Discord every time anyone who owned exotics was online. On May 15th, 2021, he found a guy who had an exotic obsidian chestplate. While trying to buy it, Avoided realized the chestplate's owner also had a dyed blaze armor set, but that hadn't shown up in his database. Was blaze armor immune to being searched? No. In fact, Avoided never coded the script to check for exotic blaze because most of the community didn't even think that it could exist. When Avoided realized the obsidian chestplate dude had that exotic blaze, he dropped everything and bought it. He traded around 30 million coins in fishing items in exchange for the blaze armor, which is now one of 2 exotic blaze sets in the game. Something to understand about these colored armors is that the rarer it was back in the day before dyeing was removed, the fewer exotic sets of that type are around. Armor which was endgame at the time, like tuxedos, are rarely found in their exotic form, but sets like magma armor, which were more mid-game, are a lot more common. There are also items which people simply didn't dye. Only one single piece of exotic sponge has ever been found, with that being yellow sponge leggings. And of course, it's worth tons of coins. Given how valuable these databases became for collectors, others started to hop on the train. One player even hired a coder on Fiverr to help him create a database. It's around this time that the YouTuber Frozy uploaded his first video on exotics, and he was a Skyblock YouTuber and exotic collector who made videos about the exploitative side of the game. Frozy's original video introducing people to exotics now sits at over 200,000 views. About a week later, on March 28th, the player Ryan H. Code released the Tropical mod, which was unique in several ways. Firstly, all previous mods of this type were scanners that located exotics based on people in your lobby and then expanded from there. Tropical was different because it uploaded all of the information from every person who was using the mod into an expansive database, which Ryan had access to. Ryan kept the mod private before one user leaked it to the public. In response, Ryan publicly released it and then totally revamped the mod with the release of Tropical 3.0, a project which was funded by Frozy. Tropical 3.0 was a public mod with a public database and website, and it allowed anyone to search up items in order to locate the missing pieces in their collections. For instance, if I had 3/4 of a blue magma set and was just missing the leggings, I could go onto the Tropical website and see all the players who own blue magma. With all that being said, Tropical 3.0 wasn't released until August of 2021 with an announcement by Frozy. Jumping back a couple months to April, Exotic Cafe had reached thousands of members, and exotics were receiving tens of thousands of views per week on YouTube. 50mil Midas frequently uploaded about the topic, including the story of exotic armors and exotic armor drip. That all culminated in Refraction skirting onto the scene when he purchased a black Necround set for 2 billion coins. In mid-May, he uploaded a video about that, and 30 days later, he bought one of those 3 exotic Black Storm chestplates for 4 billion coins. With exotics in such high demand, some people began going through great lengths to find new pieces for themselves. One famous account cracker took the effort of logging into thousands of stolen Minecraft accounts to find and take exotics off of them. With the general public now having access to exotic databases like Tropical, much of the low-hanging fruit had already been sniped. This led some players to take incredible steps to contact the owners of exotics who had long since quit the game. For instance, 50mil Midas found a guy named Mamakichi with a dark blue young dragon set who hadn't logged on for years. By searching Mamakichi's name on Google, Midas found a Japanese YouTube channel. On the channel was the Discord of one of Mamakichi's friends, who Midas reached out to. With just a Minecraft username, sometimes you can find Discord and social media accounts. As long as there was a trail to follow, collectors followed it. Some snipers even emailed exotic owners' parents and family members to try snag another piece or two of fancy-looking armor. As of today, only one set of exotic spooky armor has ever been identified, and it's owned by a player all referred to as Kento Jeff. Jeff owned a black exotic set of spooky armor, and its existence was discovered by multiple people using scanners all around the same time. Everyone, including Avoided, kept the discovery private, because if the entire community knew, there would be crazy competition to snipe it. Jeff had his Discord linked to his Minecraft account on the official Hypixel Discord server, and Avoided reached out to him from there. Jeff was also spammed by other collectors looking to contact him as well. Not only that, but searching his Minecraft IGN onto Google yielded a GitHub page through which snipers found Jeff's email. Many snipers sent him messages there, and with the email they found his university and the email accounts of his family members. Of course, his family was contacted as well. To this day, Jeff has not sold his spooky armor, but is still spammed about it. This is why you should take online privacy seriously. I'm sure you've heard that reusing the same password for different accounts is dangerous, but the same goes for usernames. One technique used to contact players is called Steam sniping. Generally speaking, gamers don't use their Minecraft usernames on social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat, but they sometimes use the same username on Steam. Thus, some exotic owners have been contacted through Steam from collectors looking to buy their items. One famous collector named Zig is well known in the exotics community for contacting people in strange ways. One time, he identified an exotic he wanted to buy, but wasn't able to directly contact the dude who owned it. Zig went to the guy's friends list, messaged one of the friends, asking, "Yo, is there any way I can get in touch with this guy?" The friend then gave Zig the guy's phone number, at which point Zig messaged him on WhatsApp. Yo, don't hand out people's phone numbers like that. Zig has never done anything illegal like hacking into people's accounts, but there are some players who are willing to cross that line. Some people are willing to cross other lines, like Frozy, who was exposed for scamming his editors and was driven out of the community. Frozy had amassed more than 40,000 subscribers and a large collection of exotics, but he deleted his profile, which wiped everything. Tropical 3.0, which he was funding, was also taken down in light of what had happened. With 3.0 being inaccessible, the biggest public database of exotics later became the Exotic mod, aka Item, created by a coder named Thomas. That was released a couple months later, and like Tropical, Item works off of crowdsourced information, but it also allows players to track tons of cool non-exotic items. And by tons, I mean 274 million items are tracked across all of Skyblock. By the time the Frozy situation had occurred, most potential shark victims had already been contacted about their armor. The prices of the exotics that already were around were constantly fluctuating because of the supply and demand. Supply wasn't increasing much because not too many new exotics were being brought into the economic circulation, but sometimes items were lost forever. Admins getting players wiped causes a lot of consternation within the community because one-of-a-kind exotics are sometimes lost. This consternation is especially present when the wiped players are totally legit. That's exactly what happened when Crypt logged on one day to find he was 30-day banned and wiped from Skyblock. Crypt was an exotic trader who didn't do much else on Skyblock apart from trading. When he sold his exotics and was sitting pretty with a purse of tens of billions of coins, an admin must have taken a look at his profile, saw his skill average of 4, and thought that it was, as the kids these days say, hella sus. Crypt made an appeal explaining that his coins were legit and he got them from selling exotics, and somehow his appeal was successful. After Crypt saw his stuff brought back into existence, he slid most of his net worth to Swavey and returned on a brand new profile. Around this time, a player named Not Him of course was scammed of billions of coins worth of exotics. He had been in a co-op with someone who I'll call Candid. Candid was a scammer who transferred all of Nodim's items to his own profile, and of course, Nodim was super upset. The thing is, Candid had accidentally leaked some of his own personal information while screen sharing himself. With this leaked info, Not Him was able to find Candid's mom's Facebook page. He messaged her saying, "Yo, your son stole my items on Minecraft, here's the proof," and provided tons of screenshots. Candid's mom went onto her son's computer and found his Minecraft account login details, went back onto Facebook, and gave those details to Not Him. Not Him logged onto Candid's account and was able to recover his items. Some things were missing, likely because they had already been sold for real-life money, but Not Him got most of his stuff back. From this story, we have 3 lessons. The first is to be careful with who you co-op with. Next, have caution with your personal information, especially when screen sharing. The third lesson is to message people's moms on Facebook if you get scammed, because they might actually help you out. Something which I only briefly touched on is IRL trading. IRL trading is very explicitly prohibited on Hypixel, but it is nonetheless quite common within the rich players on Skyblock, and especially within the exotic scene. Many top collectors have bought items with real-life money from exotic owners who were discovered in databases who long ago quit the game. Since those players no longer play, they have no use for Skyblock coins, so collectors often offer real-life money. But this practice is also present between collectors who do still play the game. That being said, it's quite dangerous because of the risk of getting wiped. Even just owning coins that aren't legit can lead to people losing their entire accounts. One exotic collector bought coins with real-life money and then used those coins to buy exotics. After not much time had passed, every person he traded with had their profiles wiped. Over a dozen innocent players. This removed around 100 billion coins worth of precious armor from the game. Just a couple days later, everyone except the dude who originally bought the illegal coins was unwiped, so that story has a happy ending. On the other hand, another example of an IRL trader, this one high profile, is 50mil Midas, who was exposed for those illegal activities in February of 2022. Midas had been purchasing tens of billions of coins worth of exotics with real-life money. When the admin team caught on, his YouTube rank was revoked and he was banned and wiped from Skyblock. Exotics are also used in IRL trading, but not as you might expect. On top of being the focus of IRL purchases, exotics sometimes work to disguise IRL trades. Some coin shops employ expensive exotics when transferring large sums of cash to buyers. The buyers can simply return the exotic, and if an admin checks the trade logs, they're less likely to find it suspicious because it looks like a regular exotic sale. That only works if exotics keep their expensive price, and some of those prices were about to drop like crazy. One of the most consequential events in the history of exotics occurred on March 1st, 2022. When the admins rolled out the final master mode to Dungeons, Floor 7. Just as the addition of the original Floor 7 had brought with it the glitch to create Black Storm armor, the master mode release brought that same glitch back. Before this calamity, just 3 Black Storm chestplates existed in all of Skyblock. After the glitch, 1979. Since the supply of Black Storm increased so much, the price dropped 98%, from roughly 50 billion coins to just around 1 billion. Wither chest plates weren't the only thing that kept their original color when upgraded though. This glitch could also be done with Shark, Blaze, and Bat Person armor, as well as Tarantula and Ranger boots. Avoided, the collector who sniped the rare blue Blaze armor way back in the day, was able to craft it into a one-of-a-kind, exclusive, exotic Frozen Blaze set. Frozen Blaze wasn't in the game when armors could be dyed, so this set is truly one-of-a-kind and is thus incredibly expensive. Avoided has had offers of 30 to 40 billion coins just for this armor, and has refused to sell it. Okay, technically speaking, the exotic Frozen Blaze set isn't one of a kind because another set exists, which is also owned by Avoided. But that set is super ugly, so we don't talk about it. As if the changes brought by this March 1st update didn't hurt the exotic community enough, the admins also added custom dyes to Skyblock, which made collectors furious. This meant that almost anyone could change the color of their armor. That newly dyed armor would have a special tag keeping them separate from exotics, and as it turns out, these dyes didn't change the value of exotics as much as people were expecting. Whenever people have something of value, there are going to be others who want to take that for themselves. Since sharking and sniping was no longer an easy strategy for getting exotics, some players turned to ratting. Ratting is a method of theft where scammers acquire access to your Minecraft account to log on and take everything. On Skyblock, most ratters turn around and sell the stolen goods for profit, and exotics are often the target of rat attempts. Just weeks after the March 1st Black Storm debacle, the exotic collector Cubsify was sent a mod from someone he thought was a friend. The mod was laced with malicious code, and Cubsify had his entire Skyblock profile stolen. This included 4 billion coins of exotics, mostly dyed Wise Dragon armor sets. It also included 7 billion in raw coins and another couple bill in items like his dungeon set. Don't trust mods sent by other people, especially mods sent over Discord. Many players have had every single second of their Skyblock progress stolen because they trusted the wrong person. Even still, that isn't the only way that people have had their accounts stolen. If you join a Discord and are asked to verify your account through Microsoft, don't do it. Some ratters have gone through great lengths to recreate those websites. Rather than keeping your info safe within the Microsoft system, you're instead sending it directly to the ratters with their Microsoft Binbos 8. The same goes for Lunar Client. One ratter tried to scam Avoided by offering him free Lunar Client cosmetics. Yikes. You can even have your account stolen through fake Hypixel rank giveaways. Scammers offer a rank and then invite unknowing players to their housing. That prompts the message, click here to claim your free MVP++ rank. That leads to a fake Hypixel store website where the victims are asked to put in their Minecraft email to verify and then put in the code. The code is actually a reset password code sent from Microsoft, which instantly grants the scammer access to your account. Even if you immediately go and change your password, which you should do, the scammer will still be able to log on and take your items. The only way to prevent this is to log on to Microsoft on the official website and disable multiplayer in the Xbox profile settings. I linked a tutorial for turning on multiplayer in the description, so if you accidentally fall for these scams, follow that and do the opposite. Doing this means you won't be able to play Hypixel for a couple of days, but it's a small price to pay for salvation. In the early months of this year, Hypixel updated their API so that seeing people's friends was no longer possible. That made it much more difficult to create the huge databases through which so many exotics were discovered. Despite the fact that nearly everyone on Skyblock had their inventory and ender chests searched with these mods, there are tons still out there yet to be found. For one thing, if someone has no friends, they never would have been part of any databases to begin with. Secondly, only players' inventory and ender chests are publicly viewable. This means exotics stored on their islands in chests or armor stands aren't detected. Finally, if an exotic owner has had their API settings disabled so other players can't view their inventory and ender chest, any exotics left in there wouldn't be discovered either. With the way exotics have exploded in popularity, and thus also in cost, many collectors are totally priced out of the market. To illustrate this, the billion coin superior set mocked by I Go By Lots of Names all the way back in October 2020 was probably worth around that much at the time. Nowadays, that set is worth over 20 billion coins. The price of nearly every single exotic has shot through the roof, with general skyblock coin inflation, as well as the increased demand with more collectors interested in exotics. Recently, a pure red Bat Person set was sold for 16 billion coins, and a dark blue Superior set sold for over 12 billion. The astronomical cost associated with these top-level exotics has led to an increased demand in armor colors created with crystal and fairy sets. For the longest time, players could dye their armor to crystal and fairy colors by spamming the pieces, while the crystal and fairy sets were changing colors. While armor created with this method isn't considered exotic, it nonetheless looks cool, so new collectors have recently begun to seek out these cheaper options. Nowadays, exotics are more popular than ever. Right now, in Item, the most expansive item database, there are 79,000 exotics which have been identified. With that information, Thomas was able to make a graph of when all exotics were created. It appears that exotic creation peaked during the early part of July 2019, and of course, stopped in November when dyeing was removed. You can view almost all of the exotics in that database, and sniping doesn't really work anymore. Basically, everyone has been contacted about their items, so at some point all this messaging from collectors just becomes harassment. It's kind of crazy that there's been so much effort put into finding and collecting these random skyblock armor pieces that are only deemed special because their pixels are a different color than normal. An entire community has been established, which I had the opportunity to be a small part of while making this video. Everyone I spoke to was incredibly helpful, and I especially have to thank Leak, Thomas, and Avoided. Thomas and Avoided's YouTube channels are linked down below, so you can check them out there. This was by no means a complete history of exotics, but hopefully you learned something about the different trends and metas regarding them, and how to avoid getting ratted. If you yourself want to help out, or even just suggest a video, drop your ideas in the video suggestions section of the Pitfall Discord, or shoot me a DM. I've been your host, Sudi, and remember, it's ethically permissible to DM people's moms on Facebook if you're trying to recover your stolen items.